Arthur slammed the car door shut. The lingering scent of lavender sachet filled the expensive leather cabin, a cloying reminder of his current predicament. He tapped his thumb against the steering wheel, his jaw tight, before dialing his friend David. "Hey Dave, you're not going to believe what my wifey cooked up now." His voice was a low growl strained with disbelief. "As if all her charity galas weren't enough. That I could stomach barely. Every holiday it's our little company, my company, hauling truckloads of gifts to shelters. Now she's really gone off the deep end." He paused, exhaling a long, frustrated breath. "She wants to adopt an orphan, a little girl." A low, humourless chuckle came from the other end of the line. Arthur nervously brushed a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. "Dave, I can't do this. I swear, I thought she was a woman of a certain age, settled and content, who just wanted to watch some old movies and travel. I thought I was in for a simple, cushy ride." Arthur nervously brushed a hand through his perfectly coiffed hair. "Dave, I can't do this. I swear, I thought she was a woman of a certain age, settled and content, who just wanted to watch some old movies and travel. I thought I was in for a simple, cushy ride. But no," he ranted, "she's got more energy and bigger plans than me. More than both of us combined. What if I just disappear, just leave?" David's voice on the line was sharp and laced with urgency. "Art, are you crazy? How much time and money have we sunk into this? Are you really willing to throw away the last 5 years? No way. You talk her out of it, man. It's the only way." "Well, easy for you to say," Arthur snapped, picturing Brooklyn's face radiant and filled with a childlike joy. "She's already dreaming about dressing the girl up in tiny little outfits and buying her all sorts of dolls. And like a fool, I even encouraged her. I told her to follow her kind heart. She thinks I'm her hero. But I'm just trapped, and it's all your fault." David coughed into the phone, the sound of a dry rasp. "All right, listen. What if we get you a fake diagnosis? Something serious. She'll focus all her energy on getting you better and forget about the adoption." "You've got to be kidding me. She'll drag me to every specialist she knows. They'd all just say the same thing. Severe case of feigned illness." "Fine," David said after a moment of silence. "What about a car accident?" Arthur paused, a cold smile forming on his lips. "An accident, yeah, just might be the answer." Brooklyn and David's history stretched back to when he was in high school. She was his literature teacher, a whirlwind of creativity, who also ran the after-school drama club. Her classroom was a sanctuary, a place where the scent of old books and fresh brewed tea mingled with the excitement of an unfolding play. Nearly every student, boys and girls alike, had a crush on the elegant, spirited woman. Many of her students, including David, applied to the local theatre classes, and she helped them not just with their skills, but with their confidence, to apply for scholarships that could change their lives. When David enrolled, he called her and invited her to a cafe to celebrate. When they met, her eyes were bright with pride. "I knew you had it in you," she exclaimed, wrapping him in a warm motherly hug. As he walked her home later that evening, she playfully ruffled his hair. "Good luck, David," she said with a laugh. "You really surprised me." Over the next 14 years, their paths diverged. David heard whispers that she had married an international businessman and moved away, while others swore she had become a successful entrepreneur in her own right. David gathered every scrap of information he could find, hoping for a chance to see her again, to be alone with her. So what if she was 15 years older? In his eyes, she was a queen, a fairy godmother of a rosy, impossible dream. After graduation, David never worked a day in the theatre. He tried to build his own business, first organising weddings, and then opening a small marketing agency. His acting skills were useful, of course, but a true commercial instinct was sorely lacking. After struggling in the service industry, he finally settled on a logistics company for consumer goods. It wasn't glamorous, but people always needed groceries and supplies delivered. He married, became a father of 2, then divorced, and spent his free time on social media blaming women and family system. One day, an alert caught his eye. A mutual online friend had commented on the photo of a striking, mature woman. "Brooklyn, you look as beautiful as ever," the comment read. David's heart leapt. He looked at the portrait, and his hands trembled. It was her. He immediately sent a connection request and received an acceptance that same evening. "Hello, my dear Brooklyn," he wrote in his message. "I'm so happy to have found you again." Brooklyn replied the next day. "Hello, David, it's wonderful to hear from you." A correspondence blossomed. Brooklyn affectionately called him her dear little friend, and he referred to her as his esteemed mentor. As the 15th anniversary of their high school graduation approached, David reached out to all the old drama club members, suggesting they invite Brooklyn to the reunion. Everyone enthusiastically agreed. The reunion was held at the very same cafe where he and Brooklyn had celebrated his acceptance into theatrical courses. Her former students clustered around her, peppering her with questions. David kept a small distance, his eyes fixed on her. Brooklyn was radiant. Her entire demeanour suggested a woman who had invested in herself and was content. David eventually asked her to dance, and she agreed. "Brooklyn, I've been admiring you all night," he confessed. "I also wanted to tell you I've been in love with you since high school, and you must admit you've always liked me too." Brooklyn's luminous smile instantly vanished, and she gently stepped away from him. "Listen, my boy, I certainly singled you out and praised you and held you up as an example, but that was because of your undeniable talent. I never, ever looked at my students as men. So let's not pursue this dangerous topic again." "Why dangerous?" David demanded, his voice rising. "I love you, Brooklyn," he whispered passionately, but she merely gave him a slight bow of her head and walked back to her table. For the rest of the evening, she wouldn't look his way and politely refused every subsequent invitation to dance. David was furious. How could she? He was a mature, respected man, yet she had treated him like some freshman. He couldn't forgive such an insult, even from the woman he adored. He sent her a passionate message later that night, and when he saw that she had unfriended him, his anger boiled over. "No, this cannot go unpunished," he thought. Now he was going to get his revenge. From that day forward, David began looking for a way to humble his unyielding mentor. When Arthur, a classmate from his brief foray into acting, appeared on his horizon, he knew his chance had come. Arthur, a handsome man who looked like he'd stepped off the pages of a magazine, was charming and well-spoken. But at 37, he still hadn't found his footing. David latched onto him. "You have to marry Brooklyn and take everything she owns." David began to craft a scenario that would bring Brooklyn and Arthur together as if by accident. He knew that by this time she was a widow. After her husband's death, she had taken over the business and rarely appeared in public. Brooklyn was indeed going through a difficult time. Her husband had been more than just a loving man. He was also a teacher, a mentor in her business ventures, and her only true friend. Left alone at 48, she had lost all interest in life. She stopped wearing jewellery and makeup, cut off her luxurious auburn hair, and her once vibrant clothes became muted and sombre. Her daughter, who had moved abroad with her own husband, tried to help her climb out of the depression. "Mum, how are you?" she would call every morning on video chat. I'm fine, darling, Brooklyn would reply, holding back tears. Your eyes are red and your lids are swollen. Were you crying all night again? No, honey. I just can't sleep sometimes. My thoughts, they just get so dark. Brooklyn would brush a lock of her reddish hair from her forehead, and Iris could see the new threads of grey running through it. Her mother, right before her eyes, was burying herself. Mum, you can't grieve like this, Iris pleaded. You're a business owner. You need to look and feel your best. You can't bring Dad back, but you still have me. Maybe Mark and I will be parents soon, and I can come visit. Don't you want to hold your grandchildren? I do. I want to so badly, Brooklyn would agree faintly, then add, Alexander never got to see his grandchildren. A year after her husband's death, Brooklyn decided to commission a monument for his grave. She began visiting showrooms, looking at samples, but none seemed to capture the pride she felt for him and her unending grief. It was in one of these quiet, solemn showrooms that she met Arthur. He walked in with a morose expression and began to examine the stone samples. Then, as if on a whim, he turned to Brooklyn. Excuse me, could you tell me which stone would be best for a woman's monument? He asked. She looked up, surprised, and found herself captivated by his deep, mournful eyes. She felt an involuntary urge to reach out and comfort him. My wife passed away a year ago, the stranger murmured. She loved lilac flowers. I'd like to somehow reflect that on the headstone. Brooklyn realized that this handsome, sad man had mistaken her for the owner of the shop and offered a small apologetic smile. I'm sorry, but I'm no expert on this. I'm just here looking at samples for my late husband's monument. Arthur's expression grew so profound, it was as if an arrow had pierced her heart. Oh, my sincerest apologies, how foolish of me. I thought you were the owner here. The owner, in fact. The meeting had been carefully orchestrated to appear accidental, a moment with no one else to witness. Just then Brooklyn's gaze fell upon a beautiful monument of black marble depicting a weeping angel with a wreath of dark purple flowers. She reached out and gently touched Arthur's sleeve. Look, she said softly, I think this is exactly what you're looking for. He looked at the sculpture and his eyes widened. My God, it's perfect. It looks like it was made specially for my darling girl. The man knelt beside the statue, stroking the stone angel's back with his perfectly manicured, long fingers. Brooklyn looked away, a flicker of concern crossing her mind. Where are the salespeople? She asked. Just then the owner emerged from a back room and began to speak with Brooklyn about her preferences for a monument. While they talked, Arthur remained at the foot of the stone angel, his head bowed in a show of sorrow. Finally, the stonemason sketched out a design based on Brooklyn's description. She placed her order and walked out of the showroom. Arthur caught up with her almost immediately. Wait, he said, I didn't even get the name of the kind woman who helped me so much. Oh, it was nothing, Brooklyn replied, flustered. I'm sure you would have found that sculpture without me. Still, she introduced herself. My name is Arthur. Perhaps you'll join me for coffee? This afternoon air just makes me sleepy. Brooklyn hesitated, then nodded, perhaps with a bit of a pleasant surprise. After their meeting, Arthur went to David, angry and dissatisfied. Dave, you set me up. You described her as a queen, the woman of my dreams, a wonderfully fairy godmother. She's a ghost of her former self. Her eyes are hollow, and she's got bags under them. You should marry her yourself if you want her so badly. She won't let me get anywhere near her. David cut him off. Just be patient. Once she falls for you, you'll see what she's really like. Arthur shrugged skeptically and grumbled. If I wasn't having so many financial problems, I would never have gotten involved. David paid for all of Arthur and Brooklyn's subsequent dates and romantic outings. He was tormented by jealousy and the remnants of his old affection, but his desire for revenge against the woman who had rejected him was stronger. He spared no expense, because if it all worked out, he and Arthur would become heirs to a large, profitable company and a lot of expensive real estate. And so Brooklyn fell into the illusion that fate had sent her a handsome, caring man who understood her better than anyone, who knew how to listen and say the right and kind things. For almost 3 months she met with him, feeling a certain awkwardness that she was forgetting her grief so quickly and allowing herself to be taken by someone else. At night she still cried, asking Alexander for forgiveness and for advice on what to do. Finally, when her daughter Iris came to visit, she decided to talk to her. Iris immediately supported her mother. "Mum, just look at yourself. You've become so beautiful again. You're my gorgeous mum once more. Do you think that's a coincidence? No, it's your new love that's brought you back to life. I'm so happy about this." So when Arthur proposed to Brooklyn, she agreed, and after the wedding, she convinced her new husband to take her to the grave of his late wife. She wanted to see what the monument looked like in person. Arthur and David had to shell out a considerable sum to create a convincing sham grave in a forgotten corner of the cemetery. Brooklyn stood for a long time at the monument, whispering a prayer that came from her heart. She then looked at Arthur with tear-filled eyes. "We must not forget those who have left us," she said in a weak voice, "but we must also do charity so that their souls may find peace." From then on, charity became Brooklyn's new passion. She began to organize charitable dinners and raise funds for children's homes and shelters for the elderly. Arthur hated every minute of it. "Listen, she's completely obsessed," he growled to David. "As soon as we have any extra money, she gives it away. She's feeding the poor and entertaining orphans. What joy is that to me?" "Calm down, don't get worked up," his friend pleaded. "She paid off all your debts to your creditors, so be happy about that. Maybe she'll play at being charitable and get it out of her system. After all, the reward will be worth the patience." 2 years passed, but Iris had still not fulfilled her promise to give her a grandchild. Brooklyn decided it was time to adopt a child. At a country orphanage, she had long noticed a girl named Vera, who had the same red hair and blue eyes that she herself had as a child. However, unlike Brooklyn, the girl never smiled. When sponsors came to the orphanage, all the children would run out with open arms, but Vera would sit in a corner, sadly watching the others. One day, Brooklyn sat down next to her and asked her why she didn't come over like the others. The answer shook her to the core. "I don't want to," Vera whispered, barely holding back tears. "You look so much like my mum. You'll play with us and then you'll leave, and I'll miss you and cry. I don't want to do that anymore." With the help of the director, Brooklyn learned that Vera's mother was alive, but had been stripped of her parental rights due to chronic drinking. A sense of duty and maternal compassion compelled Brooklyn to visit the woman. She sent Arthur to an important meeting in her place and drove to a village in a neighbouring region. She easily found the most unkempt little house and knocked on the gate. She had to wait for a while until a woman in old sweatpants and a stretched-out T-shirt finally came out of the house. "Who do you want to see?" the thin woman asked hoarsely, adjusting a dark headscarf. "Excuse me, are you Vera's mother?" "Yeah. Are you from social services or something? They already took her. She's been living in the orphanage for 2 years. What more do you need?" "I'm not from social services. I want to adopt Vera, but I found out her mother is alive, so I decided to ask for your permission." The woman at the gate looked Brooklyn up and down and smirked. "And why would I be against it? You, from the looks of it, are a wealthy woman. I don't think you'll hurt my daughter. As for me..." Natalie waved a hand. "I'm a lost soul, eaten by its addiction." She grimaced and pulled her headscarf down, but it slipped, and golden wavy hair, exactly like Brooklyn's, though long unwashed, fell onto her shoulders. Brooklyn gasped. Standing before her was almost a copy of herself, only young and emaciated by alcoholism. "Natalie, when did you get—" She stammered, pausing. "You have such beautiful hair." "Ah," Natalie chuckled hoarsely. "I got this mane from my dad. So thick you can't comb it. I always want to cut it, but it feels like a waste." "Wait, what was your father's name, and where is he now?" "He called himself Omar the Seer. He was a former architect, a bit crazy in his own world. He grew his long hair and tied it with a white ribbon. He liked to walk in long white shirts." "Is he dead?" Brooklyn asked. "No. Why? He went to an island. He had this crazy idea to build a self-sustaining eco-village for like-minded people. He told my mum she was a fool for not appreciating his abilities and his vision. So he just left us. I was about 10 then." "So you never saw your father again?" "No, why would I? He was a nut," Natalie shrugged, "and I never went looking for him." "Where is this island, anyway?" "Down the river a bit. There's a ford there. You can cross it in the summer. He has a hut and boat there. If anyone comes to him, they get there by boat." "And why do people come to him?" "He's a shaman now, a herbalist, a healer." "I see," Brooklyn mumbled, clutching her heart. This Omar the Seer was most likely her own father, who, as her mother had told her when she was alive, had read some books and lost his mind. This meant he had abandoned not only Brooklyn, but also Natalie. Most likely Natalie was her sister, and Vera was her niece. The news completely overwhelmed Brooklyn. She wished Natalie well and headed back to the city, deciding not to tell Arthur anything for now, since he disliked complicated stories. Meanwhile, her husband and his accomplice were finishing the preparations for her unfortunate accident. Brooklyn was preparing to visit Vera again, so Arthur and David staged the car to lose control in transit. Once everything was ready, the conspirators hid in a rented car they were using to track her. The unsuspecting woman got behind the wheel and headed out of town. Driving along a high riverbank, Brooklyn was admiring the beautiful view when she suddenly felt the car being pulled towards the cliff. The steering wheel and brakes unexpectedly stopped responding, and the car at full speed smashed through the road barriers and plunged over the edge. The car following her screeched to a halt at the edge. Arthur and his friend saw Brooklyn's car flip several times and land on the high bank of the river. The men rushed over. The driver's door was open, and Brooklyn was lying next to the car with a bleeding head. "That's it," Arthur hissed. But then his wife groaned and opened her eyes slightly. "Arthur, are you here? Help me! Vera is waiting for me," she whispered before losing consciousness again. "What are you standing there for? Help!" he yelled at David. "There will be no Vera for us. She'll stay in the orphanage, and I'll deal with the inheritance, because I've already paid for your monument." After making sure there was no one on the road, they pushed the car, and it quickly filled with water and disappeared into the depths. Later that day, Arthur filed a police report that his wife had not returned from her trip. The police immediately found that Brooklyn had not visited the orphanage that day. It was decided to drive along her route and thoroughly inspect the road. Arthur pretended to be terribly worried, periodically becoming hysterical and screaming, "Find my Brooklyn!" Soon, Brooklyn's car was located, but the driver's body was not inside. The police informed Arthur his wife was most likely dead. "Hold on," the investigator told him. "Drivers are searching for the body. The search yielded no results. "What do we do now, Dave?" Arthur said nervously. "She'll be listed as missing, which means I can't claim the inheritance for a few years." "Calm down. She disappeared under life-threatening circumstances, so she'll be declared dead in 6 months." 6 months? What am I going to do all that time? Tremble, waiting for her to come back to life? Are you out of your mind? She was unconscious, and the current must have pulled her away, so she definitely drowned. She was just carried a long way downstream, his accomplice reassured him. "Oh, all these crazy plans of yours. Couldn't you have thought of something simpler and more reliable?" "Well, you could have come up with something if you're so smart," David snapped back. "Besides, what did you do to get rid of your debts?" The friends almost got into a fight, but they were still bound by their shared secret. So they decided to wait 6 months and then take over the property and business, especially since Brooklyn had given her husband general power of attorney for all of it during their first year of marriage. While waiting for her death to be officially recognized, Arthur began selling off her furniture, paintings and wine collections. Buyers would constantly pull up to their house, and Arthur noticeably cheered up. He no longer thought his friend's plan was such a failure, but one visit made him shudder. When a car with foreign license plates pulled up at the estate, and Iris got out. "Art, what's going on?" Brooklyn's daughter asked when she saw her mother's favourite rug being loaded into a car. "You see, business matters. Well, I need to pay people their salaries, and the company is broke, so—" "Broke?" A voice from the car suddenly rang out, making Arthur's knees buckle. It was Brooklyn. When she was thrown into the river, she had regained consciousness from the cold, taken a breath, and started swimming downstream, trying not to make any sudden movements. At one point, she thought she was losing consciousness, and when she awoke, there was no cold, no sound of water. She was lying in a hut, and a long-haired old man with a white ribbon tied in his hair was leaning over her. He spoke with a voice like rustling leaves. "The river brought you to me, my child," he said, his eyes the same startling blue as hers, holding a profound sadness. "And your hair, it's the colour of a sunrise over the cornfields. I haven't seen that colour in so long." Brooklyn's heart hammered against her ribs. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice rough. He smiled faintly, a network of fine lines crinkling at the corners of his eyes. "I am Omar, a healer. The locals call me a seer." He paused, his gaze thoughtful. "But I was once a man of the city, an architect with grand plans. My vision, it seems, was not for blueprints and steel, but for wildness of nature and the healing of spirits." "Omar!" Brooklyn's voice was barely audible. "My father, his name was Omar. He left us a long time ago. My mother said he went crazy." A shadow crossed his face. "Crazy? Perhaps, but I was not crazy, my dear. I simply couldn't breathe in the city. The noise, the constant rush, it suffocated my soul. I saw a different path, a life connected to the earth, to the river. I chose this life, but in doing so, I left behind my family. I have carried that sorrow with me for all these years. I can only hope you and your mother can find it in your hearts to forgive an old man who chose his calling over convention." He then gently laid his hand on her wound, and Brooklyn felt a wave of calm wash over her. When Brooklyn was well enough, Omar helped her reach out to Iris and file a police report. So, as soon as Arthur tried to run away, the police, who had just arrived, immediately restrained him. It wasn't hard to arrest David either. As the conspirators faced justice, Brooklyn reached out to Natalie, offering not judgment, but a lifeline. She moved Natalie into her beautiful, quiet home, providing the support and professional help she needed. The road to recovery was long and difficult, filled with setbacks and small victories, but Natalie persevered, driven by the quiet strength of her sister and the hope of a new beginning. For the little girl, Vera, the change was a fairy tale come to life. She went from a lonely corner of an orphanage to a bright, spacious home filled with love. Her quiet sadness was replaced by the pure joy of a child, finally given a chance to be a child. The greatest gift was not beautiful toys or a spacious garden, but the fact that her mother and aunt were there with her, alive and unharmed. The family, once fractured and lost, had finally found its footing. Brooklyn, her heart full, had her father, her sister, and little niece. Iris, now expecting her own child, was overjoyed to see her family whole again. Each of them, in their own way, had walked through darkness and emerged into the light, a testament to the power of forgiveness, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring strength of family.